Hey everyone, welcome to HBCU Monday, where we talk about the events from the weekend that have you feeling away. So you know we're going to talk about the NFL draft because that has people in their feelings, in their comments, in their conspiracies, and everywhere else. I'm Tolly Carr in Atlanta. I cannot have this conversation by myself, so joining me now is my girl, Symone Stanley. Symone had one eye on the Eagles this weekend, then she had the other eye on the overall draft. Checking out our HBCU guys. Symone, Saturday night, the draft ends. What was your immediate kind of gut reaction to what you saw?
Well, you brought up my Eagles, so of course I was elated with the fact that we won yet another draft this year. But when it comes to the HBCU players and the HBCU world, I think that everyone needs to relax. Like you said, it's a lot of conspiracy theories I think we might debunk here today.
All right, I'm looking forward to getting into that. But first, let's talk Isaiah Bolden. He was the lone HBCU player drafted in this year's NFL draft, and we'll take a look at what he's working with here. He's a cornerback from Jackson State, 6'2", 205 pounds, also a kickoff return specialist. He was selected in the 7th round, 245th overall by the New England Patriots, the 101st Jackson State football player drafted into the NFL. So a nice lineage there for JSU. And man, that guy, you saw his tackles on the screen. He had 44 of those, 2.5 tackles for a loss. He had a fumble recovery, 7 pass breakups, 26 yards on the kickoff return for this past season. Did a little better last year. Right. And he also played in the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. Symone, why? You wrote this for HBCU Gameday. Why do you think he was the lone HBCU player selected?
I think there's 2 strong reasons that played a factor, and one maybe reason that wasn't in the article, but that's why we're here today to talk into it. The biggest reason I believe is, one, his versatility. He's a defensive back, and he is a ball hawk there, as we saw with the stats, but he is also a special teams wizard. In 2021, he led the nation, that's the FCS and the FBS, in average kick return yards with about 37 yards on average. So he is a wizard on special teams, and he can also play defensive back as well, where he is a contributor there as well. But the versatility is what stands out, and scouts in the later rounds, they're looking for what makes people special, and usually that's versatility. Can we use you in multiple ways? And Isaiah Bolden surely proved that. The other biggest thing is he started his career at Florida State University, a powerhouse, in 2019.
Well, they used to be.
But they're a brand name. That's the term. They're a brand name.
I get you.
Not a powerhouse anymore, but they are a brand name. That name is going to give you second looks. And I got Isaiah Bolden second looks in this draft. And he played 13 games for the Seminoles in 2019, contributed there on special teams. He also contributed there at defensive back as well. So he showed what he can do against the top powerhouse talent in college football. And the third thing, his dad played in the NFL. Now, I don't know
I knew we were going to get there.
we got to get there because he is a legacy player. And who knows who his dad knows. They can see, oh, he's got that NFL blood in him. We see every draft a lot of former players' sons get drafted. So I think that played a part as well, having a father who played on the highest level.
Yeah, I think pedigree plays a part into it.
Pedigree, that's what you call it. I call it blood. You call it pedigree.
You know, that Winston-Salem State degree kicks in every once in a while, Symone. We hinted to this earlier in the show. Look, just because you're drafted doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean you're going to make the team. There's no shoe in here. There's going to be some competition ahead of him. You've taken a look at the depth chart there in New England. And New England is known to do some quirky things. Like they move players around and Belichick and his whole philosophy. And it's quite a different team. So talk a little bit about the players who are ahead of Bolden heading into training camp.
Yeah, so we got to talk about that. And especially being a 7th round draft pick, whether you're picked 6th or 7th, those are still kind of roster bubble-ish players, and you still are battling for a spot at training camp. And you're not only battling with the guys who are already on the roster, you're battling with undrafted free agent signees as well. So let's look and see the competition at defensive back for Isaiah Bolden because, like I said, he is seen as a kick returner and specialist, but right now on the Patriots depth chart, he is listed as a cornerback. So the Patriots went first round in the draft and selected Christian Gonzalez with their #1 draft pick. Christian Gonzalez was expected to be a top 10. Some even had him going top 5 in the draft. He did fall into the teens. So this is a guy that, I mean, if the sky doesn't fall at training camp, he is a roster lock. Then they are returning a slew of veterans. So they have Jonathan Jones, who has been with the team for a while. He was drafted by the Patriots, and he has stuck with that team for about 6 years now. Marcus Jones is a player that's returning to the roster as well. Miles Bryant is returning to the roster. Rodney Randall is a incoming player that he was a journeyman around the XFL, the CFL, and the NFL. This will be his first season with the New England Patriots.
He's hungry.
He's hungry. Yeah, he's been bouncing around. He's been battling. He's been at a lot of training camps and a lot of different leagues. Then we have Amir Speed, who they selected in the 6th round, a cornerback that they selected right before they selected Isaiah Bolden and then Jack Jones. So this list is all the players that are listed ahead of Isaiah Bolden right now on the Patriots depth chart.
How do you stack it? Like when your gut reaction of his chances. We saw the players that are in front of him. What chance do you give him in camp?
I think he has a really solid chance at camp. One of their players, who we mentioned before, Jones, he was actually undrafted by the Patriots in 2016 or 2015, and he stuck around on the roster, has been on the roster for a long time. The one common theme that I have seen from the Patriots defensive back room is that once guys seem like they come in, whether it's draft or undrafted free agent, it seems like they stick around for a long time. There's, like we talked about the room right there, there's not many players on that team that weren't drafted by the Patriots in that cornerback room. So it's not a lot of transplants, not a lot of guys who started with other teams. So it seems like once they find and identify a talent in the secondary, they stick to them. So that's a really good outlook for Isaiah Bolden.
And making the roster for New England isn't always about skill. It's about your ability to fit into that culture. We've always heard how different the culture is, and we've seen very skilled players go there but just not be a good fit.
Yes, so we definitely will see that because, I mean, Bill Belichick is known for a guy who, he doesn't play around. He doesn't mess around. He's a defensive-minded coach. That's where a lot of priority has gone to. Isaiah Bolden, that's good as well, getting drafted to a team where the head coach is, defensive-minded as a defensive player. And they have a tough culture, and they're cutthroat. Ask Mac Jones, he went and asked Nick Saban for some advice, and Nick Saban went and told Bill Belichick, Mac Jones called me, and then they said, we're going to trade you, Mac Jones. So it's really cutthroat there in New England. So Isaiah Bolden should learn really quick.
Wow. Your own coach snitching
your
on that.
Own, like if you can't
that was
talk
wet
to your
snitching.
Coach,
that wasn't even dry snitching. That was wet snitching.
And he called Nick Saban for advice. Like, you can't call your coach for advice without it leaking to your other coach. Like,
that's a little shady right there.
Right.
All right. Well, he might be calling Deion Sanders for some advice. Maybe, because as you are well aware, Isaiah Bolden played for Deion Sanders at Jackson State after transferring in the portal from Florida State. So Deion, very happy, Coach Prime for his former player getting drafted, but he was quite upset that no other HBCU player was selected. Here's what the now Colorado coach had to say on Twitter this weekend. So proud of you, Isaiah Bolden, 23. You deserve to be drafted much higher, but I'm truly proud of you. I know how much you want this. I'm ashamed of the 31 other NFL teams that could not find draft value in all of the talented HBCU players, and we had 3 more draft-worthy players at JSU. So remind me again, Symone, of all the list of Power 5 coaches who spoke up for HBCU players in the draft. Was that a long list this weekend?
I think it was, I wouldn't even call it a list. Is one a list?
I've just seen a lot of people. I don't know why. I know why. I'm being very facetious when I say I don't know why. People are there are people that are just going to be mad no matter what Deion says.
Yeah, a lot of people. Now that's a list.
Now that is a list. That is a list. All right, so that's another show for another day. Let's talk about the 3 players who should have the biggest chips on their shoulders, who signed undrafted free agent contracts but did not get drafted. Let's stick with Jackson State here as we take a look at the list. Aubrey Miller, he's right there. Miller in the middle. What do you think about him, his attitude going into camp with the Dolphins?
I think all of these players, but of course Aubrey Miller definitely has what it takes to compete at their respective training camps. Aubrey Miller was somebody who was projected by the NFL. Now, I'm saying the NFL because those are the people whose projections matter.
N.F.L.
Exactly. We can say, oh, he should have went third, he should have went fourth, he should have went fifth. But the only projections that matter are the NFL scouts' projections at the end of the day. They projected him to go be a 6th, 7th rounder. There's not much difference between a 6th, 7th rounder and an undrafted free agent. That's just flipping the coin and seeing where you fall. So
that check a little different though.
No, the check is different, but I'm saying falling.
I know
it's not much. Yeah, it's not much
talent
difference. It's not
right.
much talent
just
difference.
Check difference at that
just
point.
check difference, and roster security too.
Yeah.
But Aubrey Miller, we know, is a dog. We've seen what he did at Jackson State. I have no doubt in my mind that he has the mentality to go in that camp and compete and hopefully come out with a roster spot.
Isaiah Land, he was another player that a lot of people were telling us, including the N.F.L. Hey, he's a guy to watch out for. Potential draft pick. He has to sign a UDFA.
Yes, and again, we got to be real. Potential draft pick. Isaiah Land was somebody else who was projected by the NFL pre-draft to be a 6th rounder, 7th rounder. They projected him to be a practice squad player on his final report. And practice squad player projections ends you up in the 7th round undrafted free agent route. And Isaiah Land, which we know has been said to be undersized for a very long time. So I think the biggest surprise here was that Isaiah Land was invited to the NFL Combine and competed in the NFL Combine. And usually when players are invited to the NFL Combine, they are drafted, usually. So I think that's why it was such a big shock that Isaiah Land didn't go drafted. He had all the scouts at the FAMU Pro Day. But I think Isaiah Land, he has the mentality to go into camp, compete, and come out.
But it's going to be a transition for him because of his size, right?
Yes.
He was able to play the edge in college, but in the pros, if he's going to make it stick, he's going to have to play from that linebacker position, right?
Yes, and we see it's not just HBCU talent that falls because of their size. It's big Division I talent that falls because of their size as well. I can compare him to Nolan Smith out of the University of Georgia, who we drafted on the Eagles. Nolan Smith is similar.
The Georgia Eagles. Or
the
Philadelphia Bulldogs.
I'm just using this example because a lot of times, and I'm a fan too, you have fan goggles on, but you have to take your fan goggles off and put your scout goggles on. And I'm comparing him to Nolan Smith because Nolan Smith was a huge impact player, arguably the best player at UGA on that championship team. Playing a similar position to Isaiah Land, edge rusher, outside linebacker. He was projected to go top 10 in the draft. He didn't get drafted until 30 because of his size. People were like, okay, you're playing against college talent, but when you get in the NFL, everybody's big boys. So I think Isaiah Land had that same outcome where he fell because of his size as an edge rusher.
Isn't that kind of like the James Houston story from last year?
Yes, the James Houston story.
And he got slotted into the practice squad role, and then he got in and made the roster midway through the season and was balling out. Let's talk linemen real quick. Mark Evans, UAPB. When we started the season, everybody was talking about Mark Evans. He was another player that many thought could have gotten drafted, but that wasn't the case.
Mark Evans was the biggest surprise to me, and let me tell you why. Because we talked about legacy, pedigree, that blood earlier in the show. So Teron Armstead, who went to the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, was the last player drafted out of UAPB in 2013. He played the same position as Mark Evans, offensive lineman. So it just made sense, for him to be getting extra looks. And he was somebody who was invited to the NFL Combine as well. It's just crazy because the New Orleans Saints instantly signed him to an undrafted free agent contract. The same team that took Teron Armstead, the same team that they saw Teron Armstead came from UAPB and turned into a 4-time All-Pro tackle in the league. So it's like, Saints, really? Y'all had your eye on Mark Evans this whole time. Y'all had a legacy player in Teron Armstead who probably would go in, even though he left the Saints, will probably be a Saints Hall of Famer at the end of the day, could be an NFL Hall of Famer at the end of the day. Y'all know y'all could have drafted Mark Evans. Y'all know y'all could have drafted. That's the biggest surprise to me because y'all knew it.
They got the discount double check.
They got the discount double check.
Yeah.
That's the biggest snub to me because it was like, really, Saints?
What was Mark's attitude heading in? What was he thinking? Because you interviewed him, like 2 weeks before the draft.
Yes.
What vibe did you get for him? Did you get the vibe that he thought he was going to be drafted for sure?
Well, I feel like everybody feels like they're going to be drafted, but he was very confident. I will say that. I think the attitude that he presented, I really do feel like he thought he was going to be drafted, just like we all did, and especially since he went and got invited. That NFL Combine invite is the golden ticket.
Right.
And he was invited to the NFL Scouting Combine. You have a guy like Teron Armstead who played your position, went into the league, became a 4-time All-Pro, future Hall of Famer, and then being in his legacy, I think that Mark Evans really thought he was going to get drafted.
All right. Well, he did get some guaranteed money that I saw in his contract, so that's a good thing. All right, here's a look at the rest of the HBCU players who we haven't discussed yet, who either signed an undrafted deal or received a camp invite. Majority of these players do have undrafted deals that they signed. There's a bit of a difference now. And again, back to the money with the camp invite only.
Right.
Raymond Boone, a safety from Bowie State, he gets the camp invite to Washington. Keenan Isaac, he's a defensive back from Alabama State. He signs a deal with Tampa Bay. Kashawn Moore, linebacker from Hampton. He's our second mini camp invite with the Colts. Andrew Farmer, edge rusher from Lane. He has a deal with the Chargers. Darius Hagans, the running back from Virginia State. He got some good exposure in some of those postseason bowl games and camps. He's going to get his chance with the Colts. Shaq Davis, I know you love Shaq, Symone, that big body Benz receiver with South Carolina State. He's going to get a shot with the Saints. A double discount, double check bargain there. Another Jackson State cornerback has a chance to make an NFL roster. Dejon Warren, affectionately known as Nugget. He's going to get his chance with the Bears. And our HBCU Gameday Defensive Player of the Year, Joshua Pryor. He's a defensive lineman from Bowie State. He's going to be in camp with the Commanders. They got that DMV connection working there at Bowie. 3 guys. Jackson State receiver Dallas Daniels. He's going to try to make Russell Wilson great again up in Denver. We got Cameron Peterson from Southern. He made a love connection with the Baltimore Ravens. Ricky Lee from A&T is going to shoot his shot with the Panthers. We got Xavier Smith, the speedy receiver from FAMU. He's going to the Rams. Emmanuel Wilson, running back from Fort Valley State, will head out to the Mile High City. Now, Jadakiss Bonds, there was a report he was going to San Francisco, but he put out a special note on social media that he said it was untrue. He's still in negotiations, so we'll have to see where Jadakiss ends up. We got Alcorn State linebacker Claudin Cherilus. He's going to be chanting Jets, 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 Jets. And DJ Galat, quarterback. He would love to back up Lamar in Baltimore, be that insurance policy. He's going to have an opportunity to showcase his skills with the Ravens in camp. Symone, when you look back on this 2023 draft for HBCU players, do you think this is going to be a special one? Do you think we have some guys that might shake things up in the weeks and months to come as we get ready for camp?
Yes, I think a lot of the undrafted free agent guys have a really good chance with their respective teams. Like we talked about Isaiah Land, we talked about Aubrey Miller, Mark Evans, Shaq Davis, who was one of my favorite players. Shaq Davis, we know. Yak Davis, you could call him.
Get them yards after catch, baby.
Get them yards after the catch. And Jadakiss Bonds, he hasn't signed anywhere yet at the point of this conversation. But Jadakiss Bonds is someone who we know, we've covered him for a long time, is a star. And wherever he lands, I think Jadakiss Bonds definitely has a...
Is that how Jadakiss sounds? What's the noise that Jadakiss makes?
I don't know any Jadakiss music.
Well, he makes that sound.
I don't know any Jadakiss music. So you sound crazy to me right now.
God. You don't like...
I've heard of the name Jadakiss, but I've never heard a song.
Symone, you more than anybody makes me feel old at game day. I'll just say like some normal stuff. Like Jadakiss is just like a rapper everybody knows.
I know Jadakiss. I don't know.
Yeah, like
music.
I said, Curtis Blow. Jeez. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But like I said, all of these guys have what it takes. And the undrafted free agent contracts are a reason for celebration. Just as it is hard to get drafted, it is extremely hard to get an undrafted free agent contract as well. So we need to let this be a time of celebration for the guys who did get those contracts instead of a time of diminishing an accomplishment that they achieved. Because an undrafted free agent contract is a big, I'm not even gonna call it a foot in the door. It's a leg in the door. It gets you in the NFL pipeline. And even if you don't stick with your particular team, 9 times out of 10, another team will sign you to their practice squad, which is another opportunity. It keeps you in the pipeline of the NFL.
It puts you in the ecosystem.
It puts you in the ecosystem, and 9 times out of 10, it keeps you in the ecosystem. So this isn't a negative thing that players got. And you saw how fast these players were called up immediately after the draft to sign those contracts. You are still wanted as an undrafted free agent player. So let's not complain and whine and dim their shine.
All right, so we got some conspiracy theorists out there. You know, there's a lot of talk on social media that the NFL is doing this to discourage top athletes from even considering HBCUs. Like, if you go over there, we ain't going to draft you. There's been a lot of talk about that on TV, different shows, social media. Do you smell any conspiracy at all after this year's draft?
Absolutely not. Again, at the end of the day, there's one thing we know for certain. They don't care who's out there on the field as long as they're balling. They desegregated sports first for a reason. The only thing that they're going to keep fair when it comes to blacks and whites is on the field.
Mostly.
I'm saying, now they might not bring you in the executive office. They're not going to bring you in the booth. They're not going to put you on the sidelines as a coach. But they don't care who's out there banging their heads and getting concussed on the field.
Yeah, just don't take a knee. That might.
Just don't take a knee.
We'll put a little Kaepernick asterisk.
If you are what they deem a top prospect, a draft-worthy prospect, they will draft you. We saw last year 4 players selected in the NFL draft. 4 players went and balled out, contributed, won Super Bowls, won Rookie of the Years. You think that they would say, nah, let's not go back and look over there this year? They looked, and for whatever reason, what they saw, measurables did not add up to what they deemed was a draft-worthy pick.
You know, here's the thing. I don't have a problem with people banging the drum for HBCUs and saying, you know, a lot of times and a lot of things in life, the squeaky wheel, you know, will get the oil. But I think you also have to, like, look inward and say, all right, things didn't go the way we wanted to go. What can we as supporters do? Like, what else do we need to do? Like, I just don't, I'm like anti-whiner. Like, I hate whining. So if things don't work out for me, I'm like, all right, that might not have been fair, but what can I do to overcome whatever hurdle that it is? So, you know, as fans, you know, are we supporting as much? Are we doing our part to make sure the resources are there? Look, if you want to recruit 4 and 5 stars, guess what, man? They want money. They want stuff. Like, NIL is real. Like, they don't want to hear back in the day. They don't want to, if all you have to say is all money ain't good money, shut up. And ain't nobody trying to hear that. Like, this is the new reality. So if you say this is what you want, just do your part. Like, if you didn't give any money, give something. If you gave some, gave a little more. If you didn't buy tickets, buy tickets. It might seem like small things, but when large groups of people do small things collectively, it turns into big things. And look, we say this all the time in our conversations. Black people have huge economic power. We just don't wield it properly all the time, or collectively, or focused. So, you know, I would say less on the conspiracy, more on what part do I play in this? What can I do to help my program, to help our players?
Yes, and I will say that the All-Star games, if that's what we call them now, the showcases, the bowl games, they certainly help. And I feel like a big example is, because a lot of people are saying, oh, we had the Legacy Bowl and nobody got drafted. I feel like the Legacy Bowl is more geared towards those bubble players, those undrafted free agent type of talents, because the top players, Isaiah Land, Aubrey Miller, they're going to the bigger bowl games anyway. They're not even competing in our HBCU Legacy Bowls. But you look at a guy like Xavier Smith, I don't think he was really on anybody's draft radar until the HBCU Legacy Bowl. So that, I feel like, is what got him his undrafted free agent contract, was the HBCU Legacy Bowl. So I don't think we should always look at that as a pipeline to the draft, but a pipeline to the NFL. I feel like that's more geared towards the players that aren't the Aubrey Millers, the Isaiah Lands, the Mark Evans that we're talking about each and every week.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times we say D2 and we just lump everybody in there. Look, there's we say HBCU and we lump everybody in there. And what I was going to say is, you know, D2 is a big difference. There's a big difference between FCS and FBS. So to see so many Division II guys get a shot this year, and you saw Josh Williams last year. Like, I think that's to your point. Like, some of these, I don't want to call them smaller bowls, but the new bowls that are on the scene really gives those D2 kids and some of these. We had a kid from Lane, 3 from Bowie State. Like, that's big.
The less scouted players.
Yeah.
More liked.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into more of the comments on social media. Let's see what some more people had to say online about this weekend's draft. Here's what Steve Weiss from the NFL Network had to say. He tweeted, to all the HBCU players that don't get drafted, use that as another chip on your shoulder. So if you can get into a camp, let them know what time it is. Remember, it's about the opportunity. If you get your foot in the door, earn your keep, and wake up all those who slept. Quinn Gray, he's the head coach at Albany State University. You might remember him from his FAMU days. He was a gunslinger. He had this to say on Twitter. The crazy thing about us as HBCU players, we've always worked for what we wanted and have always had to take the road less traveled. But at some point, the talent of the young men at HBCUs need to be recognized and given the same opportunities as upper-level players from major conferences. You can't tell me the best defensive player in FCS and HBCU football isn't better than some of these draft picks this late in the draft. It goes to show that a man has no influence on what the NFL and the scouts do. I don't care who he is. Keep grinding, HBCUs, it will come. And we got one more for you. This one's from Ryan Clark. He's a former NFL safety and now a TV personality, and he's had some strong opinions in the past that he puts out there, and he was an undrafted player, so he knows what the feeling is. He says, going undrafted hurts, hard to accept that no one believed in you, but sooner you do, the better. It's important one person believes, and that's you. Hug those who support you, pick your head up, and get to the grind. It's time to go make a team and love, an undrafted free agent. So, look, you hit camp, Symone, doesn't matter to a certain degree. If you can get out there and perform in your reps, those lines quickly get blurred of where were you drafted, what was your position. It's like, what are you doing right now?
Exactly, because whether you got drafted 5th round, 3rd round, first round, there's no guarantee that you are going to be playing in the NFL for a long time. Everything happens at training camp, and you are in the door. Once those pads come on, they're not going to be walking around saying, I'm a 7th rounder, put me in the game. I'm a 5th rounder, put me in the game. You got to beat out the dude next to you. So all of these guys who got these contracts have an opportunity to go in and make a name for themselves, whether they were drafted or undrafted.
All right, and Eagles won the draft?
And the Eagles won the draft. And I wanted one of these guys. I wanted an Aubrey Miller. I really wanted Mark Evans. But if I was in the scout room, I would have took him.
All right, you do so much. You're a super Philadelphia fan. Why? I don't know. You're from North Carolina. You live in Atlanta.
Why are you putting all my dots and locations out in this video?
Well, Symone.
Dropping my pin on the video.
I didn't give like latitude marks. But anyway, for whatever reason, you love Philadelphia. Where can people who want to hear all of your Philly hot takes, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube, Symone. That's with the Y, Symone, with the sports. So all right. The best takes.
Appreciate you, Symone. Big shout out to all of our crew back in the studio. We got Scoville, we got Miles, we got Jacob. Our HBCU Gameday staff did an incredible job this weekend keeping up with all of the draft selections, undrafted free agents, camp invites. As that list continues to work and evolve, just make sure you stay with us at HBCUGameday.com. For Symone, I'm Tolly Carr from the Atlanta studios. Enjoy that week, and we'll talk to you soon.